It's okay? All right, is everyone there that should be here? So ready to start then? Okay, well, thank you, first of all, thank you for the invite to do my presentation here today. I believe there will be a translation service, is that correct? Or can I just speak in English and go forward? Yeah? Sorry?
You can switch in
Yeah, maybe at the end, after a couple of beers. So maybe you start with an introduction of myself. My name is Robert Mulder. I'm from Dutch origin. Today about remote condition monitoring of the Bogie. Does everyone know what a Bogie is of the train? So it's the lower part of the train where you have the wheel sets, traction motor, gearboxes and so on. Before I start my presentation, I would like to take you through four statements that I would like to share with you and shortly discuss with you, because these four statements were actually formed the origin of the perpetuum offering, as we will see today. So the first statement is the railway industry is massively over-maintaining. And what I'm trying to say with that is we are burning in this industry millions of euros in replacing good assets that are not even near to the end of the lifetime. I have to go back one slide. I think I do that with this button. Right, not even close to the end of their lifetime. So what is happening? If you look at a train, a bogie of a train, so based on the standard OEM manual provided by the train provider, the overhaul, so the revision of a bogie, for instance, should take place at 1 million kilometers, right? Just a figure, 1 million. So you could ask yourself the question, where is this 1 million kilometers coming from? Well, this comes from that it is allowed to, let's say, to have 1, maybe 2% of failures, right? If I would extend it to 2 million, you would end up with much more failures. If I would reduce it to 800,000, you probably have less failures, but on the other hand, you spend more on costs. So this 1 million is a certain average. So if we replace and we do an overhaul at 1 million kilometers, we are actually replacing 1 to 2% of the assets that need to be replaced, but we also replace 99 to 98% of assets that are still good, right? But because we don't know what this 1 to 2% is, we just replace everything. So that's what I meant with the railway industry is massively over-maintaining. Second statement I want to make is that 9 to 12% of the total vehicle operating costs are spent on bogie maintenance. So that's, of course, is an industry average. What I've learned in the industry, that about 35% of the total operational cost of a train is being spent on maintenance. So let's take the 35% of maintenance cost. The bogie takes about another 35 to 40%. That means 9 to 12% is spent on bogie maintenance. So that makes the bogie one of the key assets if it comes to maintenance. A lot of money is flowing into that asset. Now imagine if the condition of each single bogie asset was known to you. So we really would know each and every asset by condition. We could also identify the 1 to 2%, right? And only replace this 1 to 2% and leave the other 99 to 98% on the train, since it's still good. And what we have seen by doing that we could actually extend maintenance interval with 25 up to 75%. And this, what I'm saying, is not based on lab tests we did. This is based on proven expertise in the market. I will show you some of the customers later on. Really extending the lifetime. Extending the lifetime, because if you look at many of the assets, the technical lifetime, let's look at an axle bearing. Typically the technical lifetime of an axle bearing is really designed to be there for 2.5 million kilometers. But the insane thing in the industry is that we already are okay by replacing it by 1 million kilometers, right? Because of this 1 to 2%. Now, If we know this 1 to 2%, as said, my story is we could leave the rest on the train until we need to replace it. And that's what remote condition monitoring is doing. How do we do that? And that's the fourth statement, is we do that with vibration. The statement is vibration is the earliest indicator of wear. So if degradation starts, if that is the case, you will see a change in patterns. And that's what we're doing. By remote condition monitoring, we are looking at the vibration of these assets, and if the pattern changes, we could see that is the first indicator, and typically we can see that already 6 to 7 months before the asset needs to be replaced. So the whole story, and that's shown on the next slide, is actually what we are offering, and that's our promise, is to move away from the 1 million, and just again, this 1 million is just an example, move away from the 1 million and try to extend it, moving it to the right by extending the overhaul intervals. 25 up to 75%, meaning over the lifetime of an asset, over the lifetime of a locomotive, maybe you could push out 2, 3 of those overhauls. If you know, I know you're from the passenger department, a 4-car train, if you look at a typical overhaul cost, I would say roughly $250,000, right? 4 cars per train. If you multiply that by the amount of trains, and if you multiply that with maybe 2, 3, 4 overhauls that you could push out over the lifetime of a vehicle, we're talking about millions and millions of euros. Big numbers, I can tell. On the other hand, we promise you, not only promise, we guarantee you, your reliability. Because what you will see in operations is even if you put it on the 1 million based on the OEM manual, there always will something will happen, because not all the assets will survive to 1 million. And if they breaks down, it could be a traction motor, it could be gearbox, it could be anything, it will lead to a disturbance, breakdown during operations with many costs, right? Since we monitor these assets, we can guarantee that nothing will break down during operations as long as we monitor it. Of course, if something else breaks down that's not monitored by perpetuum, we can't guarantee, but what we guarantee is what we are monitoring won't break down during operations. So it's all about reliability on one hand, and on the other hand, it is about reduction of maintenance cost. A good story, what you will see in the next slides, is that in the UK, that's where perpetuum is coming from, we have a massive install base. We extended to Sweden, SJ, to Australia, to the US. Open markets where there's a lot of competition. If markets are getting opened, you will see competition, other bidders. And typically, the competition is won only by a few percentages of difference. And that's actually what we are offering. And that's why you see in the UK, this is heavily adopted because, as said, if you talk about 10 to 12% of the operational costs being spent on the bogie, and if you could extend now the intervals with 25 to 75%, you talk about percentages of savings. And that's actually what could give you an award to the contract or not. So this is really seen as a game changer. In the UK already, in the new franchises, it's written as a commitment to have remote condition monitoring on the train. Why? Because the authority knows it will save taxpayers' money at the end. So my agenda is what I would like to show you is our solution, how it could help, what our unique solution is based on, examples of application, where it is used, which kind of companies, by the selected references, and the benefits it offers to the operating company, to the maintainer, and if it comes to the new build fleets, and maybe some considerations. So this is actually our solution concept. Let me first start, which is very important, our fit and forget promise. Our fit and forget promise is the following. The company started back in 2004. At that time, was just a spin-off of the university, one of the prestigious universities in England, the University of Southampton, where 4 doctors were looking into energy harvesting. Energy harvesting means getting energy from the environment. And that's what they did. They looked at vibrations. So if we look at a bogie, steel on steel, very harsh environment, lots of vibrations. These vibrations, kinetic energy, we use to turn it into electric energy. So as soon as the train starts to run, you will have this vibration. The system will power up it by itself and use this energy to do the readings, vibrations reading, temperature reading, and doing the transmission. So the fit and forget is, we put our sensors, you put our sensors on your train, and you leave them for the lifetime, 20 years or more. We guarantee them for 20 years. No wiring, no batteries, nothing to replace, because you don't want to put assets on your train that need to be maintained themselves, right? So those sensors put on the train will, based on vibrations, read the data, vibration data, will read temperature data, and transmit this data to what we call a data concentrator. The data concentrator is a unit mounted on the locomotive or in the passenger coach, gathering all the data up to 48 sensors and send this data based on 3G, 4G to the cloud, where it's being processed and where our algorithms are working. Our data analytic will tell you the condition of the assets and will raise the alerts if needed. Only the data concentrator is the only unit that needs to be powered. That's where the SIM card is, that's where the communication device is, and of course that needs to be powered because we do real-time readings. We don't do readings once a day, we give you real-time readings. That means you can constantly see where your train is and what the condition is. If we have a closer look at the bogie, you will see that we do a lot of monitoring. So it all started with axle bearing monitoring and wheel monitoring. That's where we came from. But we have extended it over time to do motor health as well as gearboxes monitoring. So we can do motorized bogies as well as trailer bogies, as well as we can do and look at the condition of the track. Since we monitor the vibration under the primary suspension, and we monitor, because in the data concentrator there's an accelerometer as well. An accelerometer is reading the vibrations in all 3 directions. We can tell something about the suspension as well. So once again, these sensors being placed on the bogie can do 1 or multiple readings. The sensor placed on the axle box can do actually 3 readings: the axle, bearing, wheel, and track at once. Of course, for the gearbox and for the traction motor, we need a different sensor, right? The ones in dark blue are the ones that we are working on. Axle monitoring for axle cracks. We'll see the live at 2019 next year. And we will look at track stiffness as well as bogie stiffness to look at hunting. Coming up. It's what we call cherry picking. I mean, it's what you want, depending on what we are looking at. Of course, we have the sensor nodes here. Wireless, batteryless. We have the gateway, the data concentrator, so that's the equipment installed together with the bracket. And then we have the algorithms running in the cloud, providing you with the information, and this information then will be shown on the app. That could be regarding the rolling stock, the vehicle, or regarding the track. You could say, why the track? We are operating company. Well, track is becoming more and more important because you pay for the track, right? Track usage. You have to pay the infrastructure manager. And of course, if the track is bad, it will deteriorate your assets on the bogie more and more. And on the other hand, like driving a car, we will expect to have to drive on safe roads, and so does the railroad. Our promises and our guarantees. On all our deployment, and I will show you, we got more than 12,000 assets in production, real life working with our solution. No train has ever broken down in service due to any of the components that we are monitoring. Again, that's an important promise. So that really is referring to reliability, right? And availability. So no broken down services on tracks. And no false alerts, that's the other thing. So no false alerts that we give you an alert and afterwards it seems that there was no issue. That's another guarantee. We won't give you any false alerts. Guaranteed, can be written down and will be signed by our CEO as well. We have our solution installed at 20 fleets worldwide. The last big contracts we got was from the SJ, presented in London in December, last December, and we recently had a new contract for the Melbourne Metro, where we add another 10,000 assets, massive system, commuter rail metro system in the Melbourne surrounding. But by the way, I know that there are freight companies here. We also do heavy haul. We do freight. We have contracts with GE Electrics on the CSX Freight 1 in the US, and we recently won a small contract first for a pilot for Rio Tinto, which is an iron ore company running iron ore locomotives where they have traction motor and gearbox problems. So it's all proven technology, can be seen in the field, and we can show you the references, and we are happy to bring you in contact with these references as well. Last but not least, we are impartial. Important, so we are not connected to a bearing manufacturer, we're not connected to any of the OEMs, we are just perpetuum and can equip our equipment on any train, on any device, as long as there is enough vibrations. So what does it mean, vibration? I'll give you just an example. Hopefully it's not too technical for you, but just want to show you here. What you see here is a line, and I know I have to respect the camera, but nevertheless, I want to point it out here. Here you see a line which just shows you a healthy asset. So look, this is an axle bearing. This is what we monitor, the bearing health index. So here you see it will degrade. We see the patterns will change over time. And as soon as it reaches a first threshold defined by you and as ourselves, it gives the first message and the first warning. And then if it reaches second, and you could even put a third one in, it will give another warning. And of course, behind this, there will be a complete workflow. So meaning from the maintenance employee up to the maintenance manager, and so on. 6 to 7 months before, you already see when the degradation starts, right? So typically, remember my first slide, you would say, hey, it could be that you would have replaced this bearing already here by the OEM, but was still healthy, so this is really a win in time. Yeah, it could also be, worst case scenario, that by the OEM handbook, it should be replaced here. Right? And maybe it already was broken down. Then you have your reliability issue broken down in service before the 1 million. So what we can offer you is really showing you the degradation already before it starts to happen. This is just another view on it. Here you see all the bearings of your, for instance, locomotives. You see everything is in the healthy area. Some of them are not healthy and should be replaced. And if we have a closer look, when we pick it up, so this is, for instance, the category bearing health index 2.15. Category 1, you see in the outer race, small damages, right? Bearing health 4.6, bigger damages. And I just was telling lately, also to Simos, we had in LA, Los Angeles Metro, we picked up one very early because it was a pilot, a kind of a proof of concept. They said, we want to see it. We picked it up, we sent it to the certified institute, the bearing, and they really could show the very minor already existing damage in the bearing when we took it out, because it already shows a small race, and they said, we want to have a look at it. If it really picks up it picks it up so early, and so it was really approved for them. Again, everything I tell can be validated. If you want to have the reports, I'm happy to send these to you, because we are proud on that. Another example is the wheels. As we all know, wheels are being turned before you replace them, typically 3 times, right? The story behind this, we can pick up damages on wheels, very small deviations on wheels very early, and that's really a good benefit. It's not only reliability and safety, but it really pushes out the maintenance again, because the earlier you spot a very small defect on a wheel and you make it round again by turning it, the longer the lifetime you take, because if there is a small damage and you run too long with the wheel, the damage will increase and you have maybe to take off at once a big shell of the wheel, and it will last much longer. So we have seen examples that wheel lives could be increased by 25% as well. On the other hand, an example for the MTA in New York, they said, okay, well, we do our wheel inspections as soon as the cars come back on the maintenance. We do a visual inspection on the wheels. Maybe that's something you do as well. Just walking around the trains, looking at the wheels if they look healthy. That's not needed anymore, because we do continuous monitoring of those wheels during your operations. Beside that, we can already pick up what you can't see by your eyes. We have seen in this wheel that there was an outlier. There was a raise of the index. And the customer said, well, we can't see anything. So let's take 0.6 millimeter off that wheel. And we did so. And there was a shell revealed. So it can already pick up hidden, let's say, damages, and it was good. It wouldn't have happened that this would actually cause a big problem at the beginning, but what happens if you leave it on the train, this small shell will be bigger, and at the end, when you will notice it, you have to take off much longer of much more, which will shorten the lifetime again of the wheels. Another example I want to give you is a gearbox. Gearbox health. Here we are looking at Dockland yards. So gearbox health, and this is actually a story why you should have rolling stock on board condition-based monitoring. If you do the condition-based monitoring on board of the train, you do continuously monitoring your assets. I mean, there's a difference. There are other techniques. Maybe you have had stories. If not, you have to look into it. You could do wayside monitoring, right? Putting equipment along the track, but it only takes a snapshot. The question, if it can read it, picks it up, but it only takes a snapshot. It won't tell you what the asset does if you're during the operations, and that's actually what's shown here. At the beginning, all assets seems good, but if it reaches a certain speed, you will see there are 2 outliers here. We took them up, put them on the test bench, took them apart at the end, and indeed, they were damaged. There was a damage, there were bearing damage, and we had to do the revision. And of course, this is not only monitored by us, but also examined by a certified institute. The same way we could do track. Don't be scared, this is quite a complex one, but this is actually, you're looking at the track in length. Could be, it's here, 11 kilometers, could be a smaller track, you could zoom in, zoom out, you see that on the animation on the right screen. This is over time, and this is the index again. So here, for instance, you see the track is deteriorating, getting worse. Here you see improvements made by tempering. So everything that is above the blue level shows you where there is deterioration going on, where the track is getting worse. Could be different reasons, as I said. Beginning of a rail twist, tamping work, ballast missing. So this gives you information, thresholds being reached, gives you information, and this is good for you because now you could see the track health, but it's also good for the infrastructure manager. Story I want to tell you is it might very well be, and that's what's happening, for instance, in the UK, as well as we speak in SJ, Sweden, with the infrastructure manager. They are very keen, the infrastructure manager, to have this information. Because the infrastructure manager typically runs measurement trains 3 times, 4 times a year over the track. Very detailed information, much better than we can provide them, but it's only 3 to 4 times a year. What we do, your trains are running on a daily basis, so they give this information continuously. So if there is something happening, they can already see it, and based on how it moves over time, the pace of deterioration, they could decide this has the highest priority to have a look at. So it's really for the workforce management. And that could mean that the infrastructure manager, if you put the sensors on your train and already use this data for your own assets, it might very well be that you want to sell this data to the infrastructure manager because it has a value for them, and maybe you have another investor helping you to finance the whole project. But again, it's good information for you yourself as well, because it's your drivers running on those trains, on this infrastructure, and you want to have them in a healthy environment. Just some screen examples. Here what you see is just a screen where you see the different units by type. By clicking on a unit, you can see the health. So everything is in the green area, meaning everything is healthy and is running fine. But if you zoom in, you could, for instance, look at a certain unit. So what we are looking here is a passenger train, a 4-car unit, right? And here you see the bogie, 1, 2, 4 wheels, axles, all in the green area. 4 consists, and here it shows you bearing health, wheel health, temperature, and the last communication, among some other data. And of course, the exact location where it is shows you the speed. It shows you some of the information. Of course, this is not something you want to look at on a daily basis, because you want to act on outliers, on warnings or alerts. So if something deteriorates and come to a first, let's say, reaching a first threshold, you want to have a flag raised, a red flag telling you, please act on that. And of course, that's done by the system, but you always have the opportunity to dive into the details as shown here. So, meaning for the operating companies, it's about safety. If you put it on the train, guaranteed, no breakdowns in failure. Giving already examples for other customers where customers said, okay, well, we had a bearing fire, ScotRail, I'll show you the reference later on, had a bearing fire. If you have a bearing fire, you know it properly here in Lithuania, it will be in the news, right? Train, all out politicians will ask questions, how come safety is an issue? They've put our sensors primarily for that reason, and of course benefit from reducing maintenance costs as well. Punctuality, availability, timetable driven. You want to provide good services to your passengers. Goods need to be delivered in time, right? Punctuality, availability, reliability again. It gives you a push up. And comfort if it comes to the passenger comfort, if you read the vibrations in the coach level as well as on the bogie level. Maintenance, it's about resource optimization. Now, you take the resources in, you take the trains in when it is needed. When there are alerts, talking about the bogie, you take them in, you know what needs to be done, so you can assign, you don't have to go through all the assets, do the assets that you know, because what we offer you is a virtual twin. Everything that's happening on the bogie will be in a virtual environment and visualized to you. So better use of your resources is an important point. Because beside the cost savings, at the end what we are telling, resources in many countries, I'm not sure about Lithuania, it's really hard to get good engineers nowadays, and so actually you want to do more or less with a few people. And rail management also mean that the stock control, we go a bit further, can be optimized based on that. New build trains, of course, like Bombardier is one of our customers, Siemens. New build trains, if you got a new build train, you don't have any history, right? I mean, new build sound good, I got a new train, but what do I know? Can I give you a guarantee about availability of a new build train if I don't know the history? No, I can't. So, of course, it's based on engineering. They put the equipment on already to build up more knowledge, and on the other hand, to find what I call the infant mortality issues that will occur at new assets at the beginning. If something happened, will be picked up because the OEM has to give you a guarantee about availability. So there is really an issue there and a driver for putting our equipment on the trains. Now let's see at references. So these are references running our equipment. Just told MTM, Melbourne Metro, after an extensive trial, they went for a full fleet deployment over all locomotives, passenger cars, fleet-wide, so big contract. New South Trains, Rio Tinto, which was the heavy haul. You got freight lines, already refilled on CSX. The other one I can't refill because it's an NDA in place. New York, LA Metro, New Jersey Transit, Swedish Rail. Last year, the X2 high-speed trains. Of course, a large population of train companies, franchise companies in the UK. Xinline, which is in China. And we are looking to expand to other areas as well. Here are the logos. Sometimes that helps to identify customers. And this is, please look at the website. You see a lot of recommendations. Once more, we're not talking about just new technology. It is new technology, but it's proven. The oldest one are working 6 years. And for instance, Abellio is a good one, like Southwestern. By winning franchises after franchises, they just roll it out over their trains. Yeah. Last slide I want to finish with is considerations. So it's what I'm offering you is a technique, right? We're offering you with equipment, we're offering you with software, we're offering you information. If for information you should act on. But of course, like always, it's not just putting it on the train and every heaven on earth. No, you have to really embed it in your organization. So you have to adjust your processes on it. We can bring in some experience on that, but don't underestimate it. And also what I tell is get commitment. I'm talking here, I suppose, to senior management, but get the involvement of all levels, safety manager, engineering, and management to make it really work, right? Be smart means put the objective. Don't put the equipment in and say, okay, well, let's see how it works out. Of course, that's an open door, but really see what the savings would be. Build a business case. Say, okay, well, this is what we're striving for. That's really what we want to end up with. It could be availability. Put availability in how many trains or cost savings, the amount of euros you want to save at the end, because you have to work through it towards these objectives. And only by working towards objectives, you get the organization and you meet at the end your milestones. And if you don't, I would say, reach the milestones as we believe and together with you agreed upon, we are actually willing to share risk. Meaning we have done this multiple times at many fleets, and we could say, okay, 25, 50%, 75% extension. Let's make a contract based on a risk proposal. If you're open for that, we are open for sure. Yeah, in parts already discussed, and of course the question is always, are you ready for the change? Of course, I like to have customers, but I also like to have motivated customers. 2 weeks ago, I was at in Catalonia Railways, and they said, well, this is Robert, a great story, but we have trains, reliable as ever. We don't do 1 million, we do 800,000, and actually loads of money from the government until now. So money is not an issue. I said, well, don't change the winning team. If it works, well, fine. We're not, if it changes, open markets, I like to sit together with you. But ready for change, reflect it, commitment, make it smart. I think that's the best way to move forward. That was it. Questions?
Thank you, Robert.
Was it a clear story, or was it too... Yeah?
Let's talk about the situation in Lithuania. Yes, you have a new type of rail, yes, with quite a big roughness, yes. The surface of rail is not very good.
No.
You get new trains, new assets, new type, yes, new type of bearings. And how long you need information about vibration, yes?
Yep.
What vibration that...
I understand the question.
How many tooks?
Yeah. Before I answer the question, I will tell you about the phases we have to go through. So the first phase is we have to define a bracket design to put it on your trains, on the bogie. Certified process, we can design ourselves or together with you. We make a 3D scan of your bogie, make a bracket, make it fit, you install the bracket. But then it's not working. It is working, but it doesn't give you the right information. So what we need more from you is we need to have some more information about the physicalities of your assets. What does the bearing look like, the wheels, the gearbox, and so on. This can all be parameters set up in our algorithms. And then we start working, and that's what we call the commissioning phase. And after the commissioning phase, then we really have a reliability issue and an understanding of these assets, and they can be monitored. Now, back to your question, from the start of signing the contract up to real life for a train, depending on the complexity, what you want, is it only axle bearing, or do you want to have everything included? It could take, I would say, I think the shortest period of implementation was 8 months, and it could...
How many kilometers?
Sorry?
How many kilometers? It's a little bit easier to you, yes? Because you need kilometers, not time.
For the track, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, what I was talking about, 8 months to a year and a half for the implementation. If it comes to the track, it doesn't mean kilometers. I have to ask you a lot of questions. It's about how many trains, because we put a sensor on each and every wheel. So if you got long trains with lots of wheels of a short train, how often does it run? Does it run 10 times a day over the track, or only once a week? So it's really depending on. But we make a calculation to see if you want to do the track monitoring, which kind of tracks, how many service trains are running on there, how many wheels, and we can tell you maybe only for track you don't need to install it on all wheels, maybe only on some wheels to get it completely covered. So it's really depending on, I can't just tell you how many wheels, but we can do big networks. I mean, that's not a problem. It's really depending on how many data we can capture from your service. Yeah. But in the UK, we have now, I believe, 1,500 kilometers of track for first franchise we have covered. Don't ask me how many trains, but there are frequent services over there. Yeah. And it was done, I believe, in a few months' time.
We have the problem that in our lines there are passenger traffic and freight traffic.
Yep.
The freight wagons, the quality of the wheels is very good, and the quality of the rails is not very good. So the vibration level of the vibration is very big. Several years ago, I was not calculating but measuring it. So it's quite big vibration from the wheel roughness. Yes?
Right. Yeah. Oh, we have seen terrible things in the US. I mean, if you look at European track, they are pretty good compared with US tracks. Some tracks they'll leave it there for decades and decades, never touched. Very, very bad tracks. But the good thing is we can now show you where the bad tracks are and where the blind spots are. Don't mix it up. I mean, bad track does not mean that we cannot monitor the bearings and the wheels, because it all has now become more technical, frequency domains where we are looking at. Tracks have a completely different frequency domain than axle bearings, than wheels. So we can really pick out where to look at and to identify and address the condition to the right asset.
So one sensor can define, basically you can define from the data of one sensor on this bogie, what kind, where is the problem, whether it's a track or it's a wheel? Or
That's too simple. I would say with one sensor we can monitor one wheel, one axle bearing, and we can contribute to get an image of the track, because with one sensor you can't do the whole track. Of course we need multiple sensors. But you're right, with one sensor we can do the 3 readings. For the gearbox we need a different sensor, as well as for the traction motor we need same sensors, but we need an additional sensor on it. Same sensor, but additional sensor and additional bracket. Yeah. Yeah.
No questions, we must tell you thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Your competitors probably are working to present their ideas.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, what we have seen in the market, if it comes to Bogie, remote condition monitoring, not to be arrogant, but remote condition monitoring, there are 2 concepts, and maybe I can use the last minute I have just to tell. If it comes to remote condition monitoring of the Bogie, there are only actually 2 players in the market. It's SKF and ZUS that you could see. It's different technology, and I would advise you to look at SKF as well. It's
working with SKF.
Sorry?
SKF.
Yeah, SKF, okay. If it comes to, that's for the Bogie, and there are many more other suppliers if it comes to doors and HVAC and so on, right? But the Bogie, there are only actually 2 that have proven. I believe we are the only ones that have proven references in the market. But there is another technique. And so I just want to make you aware, because I don't want to find you out later on. The other technique is wayside monitoring. So you put sensors along the track, and every time a train passes by, it tries to hear acoustic, not by vibrations, acoustic, different technique. Those techniques, of course, if you have lots of trains and a small track, it could be a cheaper option. The only thing is they can't monitor all the assets on the Bogie. Typically they are listening to the axle bearings. They can do a bit of wheels. They can't take all the wheels, and certainly not the gearboxes and the motor. And they can't guarantee you, because that naturally, they can't guarantee you that they pick out everything, because it's just a snapshot. As it comes by, it just gives a snapshot. And what we do, so for instance, if it increases speed or reduces speed, I mean, what we have seen with the gearbox, you saw only with a high speed, you will see the deterioration, not with low speed. I mean, that is what they can't pick out. But it could be a cheaper alternative. And so just take that in mind, depending on the budget, the way to go to, right? If there are any other questions later on, I'm happy to answer. You got my presentation. And I don't want to steal much more time from your weekend. Thanks.